All right. Hey, Christina, please introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hey, I am Cristina. I'm a psychotherapist and relationship coach.
And I'm D.Lisa West. I'm a human. I'm a dream doula, which is what we talked about in another episode. I'm also a life coach and an artist. And today we're going to talk about, well, if you're tuning in real time, it's almost the end of the year of 2022.
Yeah.
And the holidays are looming. Some people are super excited about the holidays. And then there's other of us who might not want to see that crazy uncle or aunt or sister or mother or brother or
father.
Who is it? And how, let's talk about how we can deal with that in a beautiful, mature way.
Yes, I like that. How can we deal with difficult relatives in a mature way?
Yeah, because we all know if you're dreading going to a family event, like, okay, it's been COVID, I haven't been able to do it. Now I'm really, oh, do I have to? There's a person you'd rather not talk to.
Yes.
Or interact with. And maybe it's because of a trauma. Maybe it's just because they're weird and you don't really like them that much.
Yeah, and that's perfectly okay. Because, we can't control the families we're born into.
No.
We have, and there's always been talking about that. You have your friends that you choose, and your family is just kind of there. So, and if you're really, really lucky, and again, there are those who be like, wow, yeah, everybody gets along. There's no issues. There's no problems. And I'm not saying there aren't happy families. Of course there are. But more often than not, there are those relatives who maybe you find more difficult to get along with, or there's history there, or trauma there, or they are just annoying.
Yeah.
What do you do with that? How do you prepare yourself to deal with that and to deal with those people?
Well, it's interesting because, of course, we both know, and most people who've thought about this for more than 10 years know also, you can't control what other people do.
Not at all.
You can only control what you do.
Exactly.
And what you think and what you react to, how you react to things. So let's say, for example, your dad's a drunk and you don't like it when he tells stupid jokes when he gets drunk. You can just stop being annoyed about it. You could leave early before he gets too drunk. What else would you suggest someone do to deal with that kind of relative?
So the idea is when we get upset, it's because we're taking something personally, which understandably, when it's family, you are taking it personally. But the idea being certain people, like for instance, I have clients who've had difficult mothers, fathers, brothers, or whatever. So they've always felt this thing of that person never approved of me. That person,
they feel rejected.
Yes. So there's that part of them that is still trying to find acceptance. And the problem, like you said, you can't control other people. You can't control what they do, what they feel, what they say. You can't. Not going to be able to. So part of why we get upset when they act a certain way, or they go to maybe the picking, well, why don't you have a better job? Or why'd you do this? Or why'd you do that? When they get into that, it sort of brings us back to that, why can't you ever love me and be proud of me? Where we have to get to the point of realizing this person is who they are. For whatever reason, they couldn't do that, but their failing as a parent does not mean you failed as a child.
Right.
So when you can kind of find that place of realizing this is a flawed person, maybe, they also were treated badly by their parents, maybe they went through their traumas, you can understand maybe where it came from, but understand this is a flawed person. This person is not going to change. They're not going to magically be like, wow, child, I realize how wrong I've been all these years and how I've treated you. You're not getting that. And I'm not saying it's impossible. Maybe you'll get that. More power to you if you do. But you can't wait for that. You can't expect it. And so this is one of the reasons why they're like, oh, if only they would be different. They're not going to be different.
Well, and I've gone to the same church for a long time in Seattle, and I remember the minister talking about her upbringing and how
Mhm.
it was really hard to go home for Christmas
Mm,
until one year when she obviously had changed herself enough.
yes.
She had done enough forgiveness work that suddenly she realized she was at a family gathering
Mm-hmm.
and none of her relatives were really irking her.
Mm-hmm.
She just saw them as these interesting, flawed humans that they were,
Mm-hmm.
and they were having a kind of a normal, interesting
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And she's like, wow, I wanted all my life, I wanted my mother to change, to get along
Mm-hmm.
with me, to love me more, to respect me,
Mm-hmm.
and this and that. And finally, when I let that all go, we had a beautiful time.
Yeah. Because you let go of expectations.
Yes, if you don't expect them to be proud of you,
Right.
like your new job, like your husband or your
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend or whatever, if you have
Mm-hmm.
no expectations.
No expectations.
Also, I used to expect the food to be better. My mom. I used to expect the food to be better, and I would think to myself, oh my gosh, I'm going to my parents' house. My mother always wanted us to go to their house on Thanksgiving and
Mm-hmm.
Christmas. And she cooked, she was a really good baker, but she wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
very good cook. So she would cook the turkey, it would be really dry
Mm-hmm.
and overcooked. And then she'd be, all these things would be set out. And then it would just be like this big whole day event where she's cooking and setting everything up and doing this and that. And then at the end of it, we ended up eating on paper plates because it was easier to clean up. So here we
Mm-hmm.
are eating sort of okay food on paper plates and then cleaning up, and then it's over. And I remember thinking, oh, the food's not that good. It's going to be a challenge to get along with
Mm-hmm.
everybody. But you know what? Now my mom and my dad are both dead. And I would love to see them for Thanksgiving. And I would love to
Mm-hmm.
see them for Christmas. And I would love them to be in their worst behavior so I
Yeah.
could love them anyway.
Yeah. I can relate to that because I've also lost both my parents. And so when I do have dreams of them, and it's interesting because sometimes, you know, the dreams of like the reunion, like, oh my goodness, it's like it always was kind of thing. And then I'll really remember some of the things that used to annoy me too. And it's sort of like seeing the whole person.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you have to love the people that drive you crazy, but sometimes, in addition, I mean, obviously, for those of you that have experienced severe trauma, if you don't have warm and fuzzy things about the people in your life, that is okay. You do not have to have warm and fuzzies. But sometimes we do get annoyed about things and we ignore the good parts. And the good parts can be good and they can be lovely. And when the person's no longer there, we do miss it. We do miss them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So there's just a way to be with yourself
Yeah.
where you can notice other people doing their crazy dance or
Mhm,
doing that. There's that uncle that tells those stupid jokes again.
mhm.
There's that kid that runs around too fast and hurts herself in the house. And you can just watch it like it's a movie.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Watch it like it's a movie. Like,
Yeah.
you're not saying to completely detach, but a certain level of detachment. Because when
Right.
you detach yourself from expectations, you're not expecting them to welcome you with open arms, be like, wow, yeah, we love your career. We're so thrilled with who you married. You don't have to do any of that. You basically are watching this like a movie, get your popcorn out or your turkey bits or stuffing or whatever. And you're like, hey, I'm watching this movie. Look at that. And if
Yeah.
you can kind of have that sort of crazy detachment to it, you can seize. Because the problem is when we're too invested, then the stuff starts to bother us. But look at it this way. Yes, and again, I make exceptions for people who have been through severe trauma. And if your trauma is that great, like if you were severely abused and you really, and they're not completely toxic and you really can't handle seeing them at all, then yeah, maybe you should not go home for the holidays. Do
Yeah, don't
something
go.
else. Don't go. Do not go. So
Yeah.
that is the caveat we put to. We're talking about families that they might be mildly annoying or reminding you of things that you know you're gonna be reminded of, but it's not actually toxic for you to be there. But
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
if it's going to be toxic for you to be there, if it is going to be emotionally damaging to an extreme for you to be there, book a vacation, hang out with friends. You are not obligated to go back and get abused. No, no obligation for that. But barring that kind of scenario, if these are people you might actually want to see, but they mildly annoy you, then treat it like a movie.
I love that. I love that. And there's two things I want to say. One, I remember now that I have a girlfriend whose mother is still alive. Her sister is still alive. They live
Mhm.
north of Seattle, about an hour and a half.
Mhm.
And one year, after we were first acquainted, I said, "Are you going to do anything for Thanksgiving?" She goes, "Oh no, I'm going to make vegan quesadillas. We're going to watch old black and white movies, my husband and I." And I said, "But don't you have, like, isn't your mom still alive? Don't they do something?" She goes, "I'm not driving up there." We made an agreement when we got married. We were never, ever, ever going to do something out of a feeling of obligation.
I love that.
So if I don't feel like going, I'm not going. And I was like, wow, I felt obligated for years to do the Easter,
Mhm.
Thanksgiving, Christmas thing that my mom
Mhm.
did. And it would have been more healthy for me to probably say no to some of those instead of
Mhm.
doing the whole drive down there, dread the food, help her clean up, leave. I mean, I was giving her something, but it was taking away from my happiness. And
Right.
also, I think that when you're doing that movie, it's like I'm a little detached. I'm in the group, I'm watching all this stuff go on, to remember that sometimes, not for big traumas, but sometimes the things we need to forgive people for is
Mhm.
just for them using unskillful behavior.
Oh, I like that.
Like maybe they didn't even mean to be
Mhm.
rude or upsetting, but they're
Mhm.
just unskillful at what they
Mhm.
said or how they said it.
I love that, and I love the way you phrase that because I think that makes the perfect division between people who are being purposefully
Mm,
like abusive and
mm.
harmful and psychologically and or physically harmful to you versus people who, you know what, unskillful behavior.
Yeah,
They say insensitive things, they do insensitive things, but they aren't consciously, purposefully, maliciously trying to hurt you.
right. Yeah, they're just being unskillful.
They're just being unskillful. I like that distinction because I
That's an
think that
easier way,
distinction.
so much
Yeah,
easier to forgive someone for being unskillful. You can just kind of look at them like, oh, they're maybe acting like a toddler would, but they're a human
exactly.
adult.
And I think that really helps in terms of reframing it in a way that you don't take it so personally.
Yeah.
Because instead of it's like an offense against me or they're against me, think, wow, they're just unskillful. Like there was a movie, Holly Hunter, Robert Downey Jr., the late Anne Bancroft, and Charles Durning, what was it? Cynthia Stevenson, called Home for the Holidays.
Home for the
And
holidays.
Home for the Holidays, set at Thanksgiving time. And Holly Hunter, is a single mom, and her daughter is going to spend the holidays with her boyfriend. And she and her daughter are very close. She had her daughter when she was young, she was 16. So her life is kind of messy, and she's not looking forward to going home for the holidays. And so what happens is, you can imagine what happens, she's there. She, of course, at the holidays is her type A sister who, you know, is quote perfect and all this other stuff, or thinks her life is perfect and looking down on her, but turns out she's jealous of her. And then you got the Robert Downey Jr. character. So you have all these people, you know, and then Anne Bancroft. So it's, and Anne Bancroft plays the mom. I mean, it actually is a good movie because it shows the craziness of the family, but it shows also a little of the love. And then it also shows that they're actually very harmful when they're together. It's like oil and water, but separately they're actually more functional. Because what's really interesting in the movie, you know, when everybody's together, like siblings are fighting and all this craziness happens. I'm going to do a spoiler alert. So each of them has like significant others, you know. And at the end of like the movie, you know, they do like the credits and everything. So they're showing like, you know, the other sister, and, you know, who's quote, you know, type A and perfect with her husband and her kids. And then the end credits with the little images, you see them playing around and having fun. She looks so happy and joyous. And then they show like the Robert Downey Jr. character being happy with his partner and friends. And then they show, you know, the Holly Hunter character who's had a new romance, spoiler alert, and they show her, you know, having, so separately, these people are happier, but when they're together, they just feed off the worst in each other. And I think that speaks so much to what happens in families, probably because they know it's better than anybody, because there's the history of stuff that happened. I have clients who were holding on to things that people did like in childhood. Like, okay, I get this is still bothering you, but do you think perhaps maybe your sister doesn't actually remember it? And if they don't even remember it, is it worth you remembering?
Wow, yeah, because you're still mad about something that happened when you were kids.
Yes.
And that's your chip on your shoulder. Might be time to bring that sibling into therapy with you.
Exactly. Exactly. So we can resolve this thing that you're still holding on to. But I think that's what happens because there is so much of that baggage and stuff hasn't been dealt with. You're just constantly feeling angry and rehashing that. And so now you're coming in there with chips on your shoulders.
Sure.
So, but now I almost think like that movie, I don't know if they were intending to illustrate that, but that's kind of what it looked like together collectively, they're a bloody mess. But when they're like separate with their individual households and partners, they look like they look happier, like the weight has been lifted. And maybe it's the weight of all that history isn't there. All the disappointment isn't there. All the anger isn't there. Why can't you be the sister I want you to be? Why can't you be the parent I want you to be? Why can't you be the brother I want you to be?
Plus, because you and I both believe that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I like the idea, which may or may not be true, that before we're born, we choose our family. Not because we're going to have a happy, beautiful, peaceful life necessarily, because the family dynamics that we're choosing are going to give us a gift and help our soul grow. So maybe that is the disapproving parent, or maybe that is the sibling that tells you shouldn't do this or that. Maybe you're the person in the family that is there to raise them all up because you're doing something out of the box and they're frightened by it because it's shaking up what they think is possible, but they're also inspired by you because you're shaking up what's possible.
Yes.
So yeah, sometimes when everything else just fails me, I think, I wonder what the lesson is in this.
I think we said in a prior video, in every adversity, there's a gift.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. You know, I'm not saying you welcome adversity or like, yeah, bring on the challenge, please. But you're going to experience it anyway. So what is it teaching me? What did this adversity teach me? What did I learn from this?
100%. You can look at your family and say, I don't want to act like that. I would
Yes.
love to act more like that.
Yes.
Not like, but not like that.
Yes.
Not like
Exactly.
she did it, he did it.
Right.
And, I want to be a better mother than my
Mhm.
mother was. I want to be a better cousin, sister, friend than
Mhm.
you can compare yourself. And that is one way where I think it's good. It's permissible to use comparison.
Yes, it is absolutely permissible to use the anti-example. I want to be the opposite of all that.
Right. Yeah.
Yes, you absolutely can. Because if you knew how that felt, especially when you get to the point of raising your own children, and there were aspects of your childhood that you definitely don't want to repeat, or you want to be there for your kids in a way maybe you feel your parents weren't, that is 100%, you can feel free to use the anti-example and say, yeah, I'm going to do things differently
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
them. It reminds me, did you ever see the movie Parenthood?
Oh yeah. Love that movie.
Love that movie too. Such a good movie. And I love the way they have all the generations and the different types of parenting. It really was parenthood. I mean, they really covered that so beautifully. And the Steve Martin character, the Gil character, he felt like his father wasn't there for him, that his father favored his younger brother and pretty much rejected him. So he's gone out of his way to be an incredibly present dad, coach the son's little league and go to the school plays, because he did not want to repeat the mistakes his father made with him, or he perceived as the mistakes his father made with him.
Yeah.
And just spoiler alert, like I love that, and the scene towards the end where the father, the son that he'd always doted on, the youngest son, had got himself in serious trouble. So the father goes to this son, the one he always seemingly rejected, and asked his advice. And he's like, why are you coming to me? He's like, because you're a good father. Like in that moment, the father was acknowledging what a good father the Steve Martin character was, and that he, hadn't been as good. And I thought,
Beautiful.
again, I want to say Ron Howard directed it, and there were 2 TV series versions of it. Like there was a more recent one, I want to say in the 2000s with Lauren Graham, and then years ago there was like a version, like I want to say maybe was it 80s, 90s, like not long after the movie came out, because family, you cannot have enough stories about family drama and about what that does to you, and how you're kind of trying to, there's a line in the movie Hope Floats where sort of in the movie where she says, my mom always says, what is it, childhood gives you stuff that you spend the rest of your life trying to get over.
No kidding. That's very true. And I remember a long time ago, I was in this group therapy setting, and there was a woman in there who I thought was old. She's probably my age now. She was probably in her 60s, middle to late 60s. And she was always complaining about how she didn't get along with her mom, and her mom disapproved of her, and this and that. And in my mind, I'm thinking, get over it, lady, you're old. Aren't you telling this yet? And now with compassion, I can look at her and think, you know what? We're never really over any of it.
Right.
Even if we think, oh, this is how I'm really going to shift this one thing in my life, that's going to come around again. And there's another level of the onion that we get to peel and get all the way down. And as life unfolds for us, so do our lessons.
Yes. And like you said, being spiritual beings, right? We learn more from adversity. And again, not inviting it. I'd like things to go smoothly. Okay, can we just do that? But we learn from adversity, because what builds us and who we are as spiritual beings is how have we responded? How have we responded to adversity? How have we responded to when maybe someone did not approve of us or try to knock us down or make us feel less than we are. Did we grow from that? Did we become more determined, or did we allow it to make us shrink into ourselves? So it's almost like you get this push. How do you push back? Like you had said in a prior discussion, you talked about a dream where basically you stood up to the dream bully.
Yeah,
And
right.
you said, I can wake up anytime I want. And you did. So in our waking life, we get to stand up to the life bullies. And we get to stand up to some of the family bullies and say, hey, and say to ourselves, this is what this experience taught me, but I don't need to keep being bullied by it.
Right on. And I'll end the conversation here because I remember there was a time where it was really hard for me to go back and visit my parents.
Mhm,
And I felt really criticized.
mhm.
And I decided that when my parent would start to criticize me, I would just leave. I had a car. I didn't have to be
Mhm.
there. I was visiting. So right in the middle of some criticism, I'd be like, oh, gotta go. Bye. And after doing that about a dozen times, I didn't hear that critical voice from that parent.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
had retrained them by my not listening, not engaging, in fact, not
Mhm.
even being there for the rest of the sentence. Oh,
Exactly.
gotta
Gotta
go.
go.
They're like, wait, what? Yeah, gotta go. See ya. I didn't
Mhm.
say anything like, I don't want to have this conversation. I don't want you to criticize me. I didn't have to say any of that. All I had to do was vote with my feet,
Yes,
walk out.
exactly.
And
Walk out.
any of you listeners who need to do that on a holiday gathering, I'm giving you
Yes,
permission.
I
Just
give permission too. So you got permission from 2 coaches here. If you need to walk out, it is okay.
yeah,
Walk out.
don't even make it a drama. Just like,
Don't
oh,
even make it
gotta
a drama.
go.
Say, oh, gotta go. You don't have to get into a big fight or drama. You don't have to
Mhm.
get into anything. Oh, no, two people again. You don't have to do any of that. You can just say, oh, gotta go.
Gotta go.
And
Bye.
that's it. Bye.
Gotta go. Bye. Okay, so now we gotta go.
We gotta
Bye.
go. Bye.